Okay, so with the fifth and final season of Star Trek Discovery soon to darken our doorstep in early 2024, I thought I would at least try to compile some of my thoughts on this show. With previous Star Trek iterations, namely the 5 Star Trek pre-2005 series and movies, there existed a very simple ensemble structure. We had the quote main character that was the lead of the show, the captain, the central character that was essentially the show's anchor, and all of the characters were supporting roles branching off from there, each with a specific function or role within the series. The Star Trek cast of characters typically consisted of the captain, the leader, the diplomat, the rock, the guide stone, the one individual who had earned the responsibility and trust of ensuring the safety of hundreds if not thousands of lives, the responsibility of commanding a giant starship with insanely advanced technologies, and using all of their experience to safely and cautiously seek out new life. You had the first officer, otherwise known as the number one, which is a term widely overused in nutrek to the point of cringe, responsible for the day-to-day departmental running of the ship. The reserve captain in the event of emergency, or shore leave, amongst many other duties. The chief engineer, the maintainer, the fixer, the mechanical and technological genius who would work miracles and turn rocks into replicators. The chief of security, who often served as the tactical officer as well, would usually be outmatched and outgunned on several occasions, but would always try to ensure the safety of the ship, the crew, and its mission. The science officer, which was a secondary role, fulfilled by several different characters in all of the series across Star Trek, would be the representative of science and give answers and theories to uncover the truth of the universe, and would have for sure told Tom Paris that Warp 10 is the dumbest concept in the history of stupidity. The operations officer, who would ensure the continued efficient operations of the ship, as well as, but not limited to, ship's communications, power requirements, damage reports, and systems monitoring. The counsellor or morale officer, who would pick up the pieces, help with the negotiations, have bad feelings about things, and occasionally annoy the viewer with awkward personality traits and other quirks. The chief medical officer, who would, well, it's obvious, isn't it? Heal the wounds, go toe-to-toe with alien viruses, cure strange new diseases and alien ailments, and have the occasional good romp with Casper the Horny Ghost. The pilot, or helmsman, who would fly the ship and plot courses, set course for home and the nearest starbase, and usually be the best pilot in Starfleet. No, not you. Each of these characters would bring a very particular set of skills to the mix, and would mostly converge to form the central structure for the narrative of the show, with subplots and storylines of their own which would culminate to a usually well-rounded episodic experience. The captain, however, would rarely be the focus of each show. The role would serve as an anchor or a route to the overall structure of the ship or space station of which each show is based. The captain would not be the sole reason for the success or failure of a mission or story of every episode. For example, the ship would be facing a situation or anomaly that would require the majority of all the ensemble characters of the ship to overcome. With this, I'm not making the argument that the captain would not take most of the responsibility or consequences of said decisions as their own, but the crew's experience would be the meat of any decision that the captain would make. Additionally, the captain would often ask for suggestions from the crew when all of their ideas they had would simply not pan out. That's the importance of these characters, and the importance of showing that with diversity of skill comes more options to overcome difficult situations. And so, with all that in mind, I give you Star Trek Discovery, a show that was sold to the fans and non-fans alike as a change of perspective, where they would shift the focus of the main character from the lead position, the captain, to the position of the first officer. Enter Michael Burnham, retconned adopted sibling of our very own beloved character of Spock. A ridiculous insert if I ever did see one, but that rather unfortunate plot point is not the focus of this particular video. When it comes to the structure of a series of Star Trek, Discovery really broke the mould. Their intention was to shift the focus from the captain to the first officer, and well, the result seemed ironically out of focus. Not only was the titular ship not featured in the first 2 episodes, we were presented with a sort of prologue to the show itself, where we learned what happened to our main character, the choices that she made and the resulting consequence of those choices. Within the first 3 episodes, we were given a main character that had committed an act of mutiny, got her captain killed, and started a war that would go on to kill thousands of people. At the end of the prologue, she's rightfully stripped of her rank and sent to prison. It's not a great start for a main character, but at least we're on some sort of journey. She's then diverted to the starship Discovery by a captain called Gabriel Lorca. It was at this point, when first watching this complete ball bag of a show, that I realised what they must be doing with the story. They're going to have her mentored and guided by another captain, and we'll be going on a journey with her as she learns the error of her ways, and we'll be exposed to so many different scenarios, but we'll be seeing it from another point of view. Yeah, okay, look, we're all allowed to have a certain amount of naivety in life, because of course that isn't what we got, that isn't what happened. What followed was inexplicable in terms of a Star Trek show. Mikey Spock Burnham was, by the end of Season 1, seemingly forgiven for her past transgressions, and fully reinstated to a former rank and position on another ship. It would seem that even the worst individuals in the Star Trek universe can be forgiven, and it was clear to all that Burnham was a special case. No longer were we watching an ensemble crew of matured and evolved humans that were boldly going out into space, learning to work together and use a diverse set of skills to deal with difficult situations. Instead, we got a bunch of childish, over-emotional weasels who all had a tragic backstory, each of which will outdo the previous one. We now have the one and only character we apparently need. All the other characters are unimportant now. As Discovery continued to burn through episodes in an ironic dumpster-fire-style clusterfuck of epic yet extremely dull proportions, it became less about the ensemble working together, if it ever was, and more about the birth of diverse space Jesus. This character would essentially have all the solutions to every problem that arose, and be the saviour of every situation that came along, and the key to everything. Red Angel, anyone? This is not the show structure that had worked so well in the past. The structure that had built a fan base and had stretched along for over 5 decades. I mean, ask yourself honestly, if you were watching a show about one character that saved the day in every episode, that was the answer to everything, that had all the answers, and solved every problem themselves, would it really be that interesting? I mean, I've watched many such shows and usually tune out by the end of the 1st or 2nd season. The rinse and repeat concept gets old pretty fast. For the same reason that many tuned out of Formula 1 in the early 2000s, when the same driver won every race for years on end. I mean, not that I'm trying to diminish any of the accomplishments, as it was very impressive, but ultimately it got very dull very fast. And as Sisko states in The Emissary, the game wouldn't be worth playing if we knew the outcome. Now, we can all agree that Burnham's character is one of the biggest Mary Sues that has ever been seen on television. However, there are certain points to Burnham's character that I think evolve the concept of a Mary Sue. A Mary Sue is described as a type of female character who is depicted as unrealistically lacking in flaws or weaknesses. But Michael Burnham does have flaws. She does have weaknesses, regardless of what the hacks tell you. She's clearly made mistakes, and, well, one thing we can all also agree on is she sheds far too many tears and a lot of cheap, manufactured, out-of-place dramatic moments that make absolutely no sense whatsoever. I would extend the definition of Mary Sue to include lack of long-term consequences for the character. This is not a redemption arc in any way, and even if it was, it's most certainly not earned. As Discovery limped into the future 900 years, Burnham once again became the answer to everything and the sole saviour of the Federation. As far as an ensemble cast of characters go, can you honestly tell me anything about the sub-characters? Even their name. It took me 2 seasons to even give a damn enough to retain the names. And that was solely because of repeated blows to the head to try and burn them into my mind. Futile in hindsight. With each series of Star Trek, we were able to get to know our supporting characters. We were on a journey with all of them. We were able to follow Data's journey to becoming more human. We followed Worf's story of the outsider's struggles to be accepted by his own people. We watched as LaForge crashed and burned with many different women at futile attempts at coupling. We watched as Harry Kim saved Voyager several times over and innovated Daystrom levels of new technologies and ideas and not get promoted. We learned about the Trill, the Ferengi, the multitude of species out there in this rich, vibrant universe of Star Trek through those secondary characters. To me, Star Trek was never just about the captain, the first officer, or even about the damn janitor. It was the diversity of interesting characters that populated each show, which, yes, does include the ships, by the way. At best, Discovery only ever focuses on other characters from the perspective of how they were just revering Burnham and making Space Jesus' ego even bigger. They only serve to bolster this awful character because the character alone cannot stand by herself. Without supporting characters, a show like Star Trek cannot exist. But these supporting characters must also hold our interest. And when I can't even remember all of their names, that should tell us something about just how important they are to the writers. Simply put, the supporting characters in Discovery are at best background characters, sitting as some inconsequential pixels in the back of the TV screen, waiting for relevance, only to be brought out in the limelight as mere strangers. Tools to be used to make the focal character even more amazing. And still, for some cheeky and ridiculous reason, we're expected to give a shit when one of them dies in an over-the-top, falsely dramatised, manipulated fashion and mourned over in an awkwardly foreign eulogy that serves no connection to the viewer, but instead treats us to a barren, shallow reminder of why said character was amazing without providing any meat on the bone. Discovery fails on so many levels, and I will explore this more in this series of videos. I've done some previous off-the-cuff reviews of Season 3 and 4 on my channel, where I break down each episode and give you my thoughts on it, but I wanted to try something different. This is just the beginning, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Take care of yourselves, look after one another. Bye-bye for now.